Chapter 10. The churning, gritty water was everywhere at once. Over Charlie, under Charlie, up his nose, down his throat. The salt water stung his cut lip. Luckily, the twisting ride didn't last long. The wave spat him off the beach. He rolled. He stopped just before he smacked into the edge of the raised sidewalk. He pulled himself up, amazed he wasn't hurt. He torn the knee of his trousers, but that was it. 3 younger kids had also been swept here by the wave. "Let's do that again!" screamed the littlest one, and they all took off back towards the beach. Charlie glanced nervously around, scanning for Gordon, but he didn't spot him. Hopefully the wave had carried him all the way to Hawaii, but no, Gordon had to be somewhere close. A sickening feeling swirled in his stomach. He had to get out of here before Gordon found him. But first, he had to catch his breath. Charlie climbed up onto the sidewalk and stood behind 3 young men. All around him, people were still cheering as the waves crashed down. These men screamed and clapped at each wave like they were at a baseball game. But then an angry shout interrupted them. "What are you laughing at?" Charlie turned as an old man in a green hat hobbled toward them. Charlie was surprised to see it was Mr. Early, Grandpa's friend. He didn't seem to notice Charlie. "This is a hurricane," he scolded the men. "The word, hurricane." It jarred Charlie, as if Mr. Early had cursed. The 4 men eyed one another. "Don't worry, sir," said the loudest of the group. "Hurricanes can't hit us here in Galveston." He was talking to Mr. Early as if the old man were a toddler like Lulu. "That's dead wrong," Mr. Early growled. He frowned, as if he argued about this before. A hurricane nearly destroyed the whole island in 1837. That was before Galveston was even a city. But I was here back then. I was right here, and I remembered it. He looked off into the distance. The wind tore houses apart. Water was everywhere, even where it had never gone before. And then the sea suddenly rose up, swallowed the entire island. So many lost. Mr. Early's voice trailed off. A strong gust of wind lifted his hat off his head. A strong wind of gust A strong gust of wind lifted his hat off his head, but the old man didn't notice. He seemed like he was far away from here in his mind. Charlie reached up and snatched the hat from the air before it blew away. The man eyed Mr. Early impatiently. He interrupted their fun. The loud man signaled to his 2 buddies, and they moved farther down the sidewalk. Mr. Early didn't notice that either. "That tree. That's how I got through. I climbed up. Somehow I managed to hang on until the sun came up. And when the storm was done, there was nothing left. Nothing at all." He stood there, staring at the waves, his thin white hair blowing in the wind. Charlie waited until he was sure Mr. Early was done with his story. Mr. Early," Charlie said finally, speaking up over the gust. Here's your hat." Mr. Early looked surprised. He took his hat, put it on, and smiled at Charlie. "Do I know you, son?" Charlie didn't know what to say. Of course Charlie knew him. Charlie had joined him and Grandpa on a few fishing trips, but then Charlie understood. Mr. Early's memories must be slipping away from him. The same had happened to Grandpa before he passed away. Should I help him get home? Charlie thought, but then Mr. Early tipped his hat and hobbled away, and before Charlie could go after him, a chorus of gasps rose up from the crowd. The Pangoda, a woman shouted. Charlie whipped around and stared out at the Pangoda. Oh, what was left of it? Waves were attacking the building, clawing it, ripping it to pieces. The roof cracked apart. The long walkway twisted and split in two. Charlie remembered once seeing a pack of dogs fighting over the body of a squirrel. The tilpa snores and growls, the swiping claws and bared teeth, the hunks of fur that flew through the air. That's what the ocean looked like now. A pack of wild beasts devouring a carcass. Soon nothing would be left of the pangolin but its scattered bones. A chill slowly rose through Charlie's body. Mr. Early's story. Could it be true? The chewing had stopped, and it had started to rain. The wind gusted even harder. Whoosh! A wave crashed. Varoom! Baroom! Mr. Klein said that it was impossible for a hurricane to hit Galveston, but Mr. Early said he'd lived through one. Charlie suddenly didn't know what to think. He turned around. He had to get home. Now. Chapter 11. Around noon. Charlie tried to walk fast, but the wind was getting stronger, and it was pushing hard against him. He shouldered his way forward, his head down. It had started to pour, but as he made his way farther from the beach, he noticed that everything seemed normal. Carriages and buggies rattled by like always. Kids stomped through puddles. The streetcars jolly ding dong, ding 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 echoed from nearby. And back home, it seemed like just a typical rainy Saturday. He found his family in the kitchen. Mama was baking her famous ginger snaps. Papa was sitting at the table, organizing his tools. He was getting ready to start a big new building job on Monday. Lulu was sitting next to Papa, her face sticky from the cookie dough covered spoon. She was licking. Chowie! Lulu sang to him when he walked into the kitchen. Mama took one look at him and gasped. Goodness, you're soaked! She exclaimed, rushing out quickly and returning with a blanket. The pangoa is gone, Charlie said as Mama wrapped the blanket around his shoulders. Gone? Mama gasped. What do you mean? The waves at the beach are huge. I've never seen the Gulf so rough, Charlie said. They tore it apart. He thought of those wild dogs again. How terrible, Mama said. Papa let out a long whistle and shook his head. He didn't look shocked, though. Every few years, a big storm comes along, he said. Some buildings get damaged. A few might get swept away. It's the price we pay for living on this beautiful island. Then we build it right away. They'll make the Pandora even stronger. You'll see. Charlie still felt uneasy. Could this be a hurricane? Charlie asked. Of course not, Papa said. What that? Lulu asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Mama raised her eyebrow with alarm, signaling to Papa and Charlie to stop the discussion. Now, of course she was right. Charlie knew. Hurricane was not a word any two-year-old needed to learn, especially Lulu. Mama wiped Lulu's hands and face and took her off for a nap. Charlie started to follow them. He felt silly and he needed to change his clothes. But Papa waved for him to come back. He put down his screwdriver and pushed aside his big toolbox as Charlie sat next to him. He was cold, but being closer to Papa warmed him up. You're all right, son? No, Charlie wanted to say, and he realized it wasn't only those giant waves and the torn apart Pandora that was making him feel sick. It was Gordon. But he couldn't tell Papa that. Big storms can be fierce, Papa said, taking a hold of Charlie's hand. I've told you all about the big storm we had in 1886. Charlie nodded. Papa told that story as often as Grandpa talked about the Texas Revolution. It was a huge storm. Streets all along the beach flooded. The bay flooded, too. There was so much water downtown that ships were sailing in the streets. What I've never admitted to you or anyone is that I was completely terrified, Papa said. He peeked out the doorway like he wanted to make sure Mom wasn't listening. I was maybe 17 years old. A big show off. Nothing scared me. He smiled a little and then shook his head. But the sound of that wind and all that water, I was so scared I got into bed and huddled under the covers. He chuckled softly. I was just like Lulu. I'm surprised I didn't hide under the bed. Charlie cracked a smile, even though he could tell Papa wasn't kidding. I somehow managed to fall asleep, Papa went on, and when I woke up, the sun was shining. We lost some tree branches. There was a mess in the yard, but we cleaned it all up. The wind let out a big blast, and the window rattled. Papa looked at it and waved his hand like he was shooing a fly. This will be over soon. Don't worry. Charlie took a breath. The air smelled like ginger snaps. Now, hurry up and change out of those wet clothes, Papa said, or Mama's gonna to make you wipe all the water off the kitchen floor. Charlie felt much better. He changed, ignoring the sounds of the pouring rain and howling wind. Luckily, there was no thunder. He peeked in on Lulu. She's fallen right to sleep. He figured he helped Papa with his tools, but first he needed to use the privy. Never fun in weather like this. He opened the back door. The fierce wind sent a stinging spray of rain right into his eyes. He blinked hard as he took 4 steps to the privy and grabbed hold of the door handle. The wooden handle felt slimy and lumpy. He figured it was clumps of mud, but then the lumps started to squirm under his fingers. They were alive! Charlie jumped back in horror. Something shot toward him and slapped him on the cheek. It made a noise, a croaking hiss. Ah! Charlie cried out. He looked around, and now he could see that there was brown lumps everywhere, on every rock, tree stump, and stick. He looked down. There was one on his boot. It had big, bulging eyes. Chapter 12. Charlie shouts brought Mama and Papa out of the back door. Charlie stood up, pointing. The They're frogs! Small brown frogs, the kind that they always saw in the grass or the fishing creeks or the street gutters after an overflow. There was nothing weird about seeing frogs, even 3 or 4 at once, but there were hundreds here. Goodness, Mama said. Look at that, Papa said. I'm sure they're just trying to get off the wet ground. This rain is really coming down. Papa wasn't worried, and even Mama just shook her head. Go quickly, come right back, she said to Charlie. Charlie went into the privy and tried not to think about how many frogs might be watching him. He did his business quick and hurried inside. He went into his room and closed the door. He had to change again. Could this day get any weirder? He just wanted the storm to end. He decided to take Papa's advice and get into bed. He lay there a long time. It seemed like hours, but he couldn't fall asleep. So finally, he cracked open his Macquarie book. He turned to a random page and started reading about a young magician Macquarie had met in New York City. His name was Harry Houdini. He calls himself an escape artist, and he has a remarkable act. He can free himself from any rope or chain, no matter how tightly it is knotted. I am certain he uses no blade or any tool. He wouldn't tell his secret, but he did say one must not panic or struggle when trying to get free from a rope. That will only make a knot tighter. Whoosh! Wow, that was a big gust. The whole house shook. Charlie put the book down. Even Macquarie couldn't distract him from the storm. and it made him nervous lying here alone. He found Mama and Papa in the sitting room. Mama was mending Charlie's torn trousers. Papa was now sorting through his box of nails. It was barely 3 o'clock, but it was so dark outside they lit the lanterns. Ginger snaps are done, Mama said, pointing to a small plate on the coffee table. Help yourself. Charlie felt too queasy to eat one. He went to the front window and peered out. Through the thick curtain of rain, he saw dark, the dark steel gray clouds tumbling around in the sky. They hung so low, Charlie felt like he could reach up and grab one. Whoosh, whoosh. The house shook, even harder than before. But Mama and Papa didn't even look up from their work. Charlie peered out into the street. To his surprise, he saw rushing water. Had he ever seen so much water in the street in front of their house? Not that he could remember. Papa, he said, there's a lot of water in the street. Papa glanced up from his nails. Makes sense, son, he said. I haven't seen it rain this hard in years. I'll bet there are some pretty big puddles out there. Charlie looked harder at the street. The water didn't look like a bunch of puddles. It looked like a river. He imagined that Sarah was right next to him. He heard her voice in his head. Think about it. Where could that water be coming from? Before Charlie even knew what he was doing, he had rushed out the front door. What are you? Mama called as the door closed behind him. There were more little brown foxes out here, all, all over the front porch. They seemed to stare at Charlie as he carefully made his way down the porch steps, trying not to slip. He pushed against the wind and stepped onto the street. He was shocked to find himself in water halfway up his thighs. It was rushing so fast Charlie almost fell over. This definitely was not a puddle. The wind and rain raked racked at Charlie's face. His heart pounded. What is happening? And then he had an idea. Something Sarah would definitely do. He dipped his finger in the water, stuck it in his mouth. His finger tasted salty, just like he guessed and feared it would. Now Charlie was sure this water wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from the Gulf. But how was that possible? The Gulf was nearly a mile from here. As Charlie looked around him, he remembered what Mr. Early had said. The wind howled, but Charlie could still hear the old man's words in his mind. Water was everywhere, even where it had never gone before.